Hey folks, this is No Chaser with David Eisenagel. Yes, that's how you say my last name, and yes, it's very weird, and yes, it's very German. But today I want to talk about what I believe is actually, the most crucial thing in mental health and recovery. And I say mental health and recovery because I feel like this is one of the most fundamental parts of getting better, whether it's mental illness, something like depression, which I have major depressive disorder. I had it even before I started using drugs or drinking. With that being said, obviously in trying to get sober, just anything where you have stuff up here that is ruining your life or that's holding you back. This is I would consider it the foundation of you being able to get better. And that thing is hope. Now, before you think this is corny or anything, I'm not going to come at you with some like motivational poster at work or Hallmark card shit or anything like that. I mean this in a very like serious and a fundamental way. Because to me, I know the power of hope throughout my life, mainly because I've known the power through its absence. Like I have been through many different stages, mentally different circumstances in my life during like certain problems or crises or just things going on. Like I've run the gamut of just different places you can be. Unfortunately, a lot of them crappy, but just I've run the gamut on a whole like myriad of places you can be at in your head. And I've been in downward spirals. I've been in slower trajectories of not feeling great or getting worse. I've been on the come up. I've risen at times. I've gotten better. And through all those times, the one thing that was constant on what affected those the most was how hopeful I was, or rather, how hopeless I was. Because I've been in states of terrible depression when I wasn't drinking or using drugs. I've been in a horrible state of depression while I was drinking. I've been in a spiral of drinking and I wasn't really depressed. I mean, it was still awful. And I've been just kind of sober with no depression. And all these things, the way that I was able to improve my life was only when I was hopeful. Because the thing is that there's so many things you could be like, well, what about like other cornerstones of getting better, like honesty or, flexibility, being able to adapt, your empathy, just any of those like giant things in well-being that is promoted a lot. I think hope is the most important one because it drives action. And I think that action is the number one route to getting better. It is things that you do in your life to change. Now, obviously, you can do the whole chicken or egg thing about where your mind's at, what you're thinking, if that drives action, or if action drives your thinking. At least the way I've experienced it is that many times I've not been in the mental space to really push through with action, but I've been able to if I've been hopeful. And even when I've been in positions where I've had all the resources, I've had support, and things just in my life were generally going well, when I've been hopeless, it doesn't matter. I remember, it's kind of an example of this, I remember there was a guy speaking where I've had some stuff occur in my life that hasn't been great. We all have, but this was a person who had seen it way worse. Grew up with trauma and abandonment, and he was homeless and all this type of stuff. And I remember him saying, if I can make it, you can too. And I remember thinking in my head, I was like, well, no, I actually don't feel like I can because you clearly have a mind that has like a way that gravitates to hope or resiliency that I don't feel like I have. People, they get hope from a lot of different places. Faith is a big one, and that is something I super struggle with. But they can get hope from other people, but sometimes it feels like something inert. It feels like something that just comes through for you, because there's been plenty of times where I've thought like, I've gained hopefulness in my life because I was doing this thing, because this person was in my life encouraging me, because I found fortune and luck in certain areas. But if I've really reflected, there's been other times where I've been in that same sort of position, the same sort of resources or support or helpfulness from other people, good things happening to me. And when I felt hopeless, that that didn't matter. I talk about the times where I was like really, really depressed, and I've been depressed before, but have not felt like totally hopeless. Like I've just been, like I've been in a bad spot where getting through the day is so tiresome, and you find yourself getting frustrated quicker, or you're just in a morose sort of like mood of everything's gray and music sounds gray and food tastes gray and the sky is gray, and it doesn't like I've been in those places, but I've been able just to kind of like push through it. That kind of been able to push through it sort of mechanism comes from just even a small amount of like hopefulness is like, well, if I do this thing or this thing, or if I just get through this, if I just hold on, kind of grind it out, something will be better. That something will be better part is so integral to being able to get out of that spot, to either move on with your life or to improve your life or to like just weather a storm. And I'll tell you one thing, I have attempted suicide once, and that was like at the time when I did it. There's honestly certainly been worse times in my life, but that was when I was the most hopeless. I've like there's a very stark reason why when people are assessing suicidal ideations or your suicidality, they'll ask you, have you been depressed, have you felt worthless, do you feel like a burden to people? But one thing I know from talking with professionals and all the literature about it is something that they really key on is your feeling of hopelessness, because that hopelessness drains your ability to do so much, if not anything, because it even in a place of not where I talked about it in a time in my life where I wasn't in a serious state of depression. I there was times where I just kind of felt hopeless, though, that things were so stagnant and they wouldn't change and that there wouldn't be a better tomorrow. Just like, you don't have to. Hopefulness isn't just thinking that tomorrow is going to be great or my near future is going to be awesome. It's just thinking that it will be better. There will be even a small amount, there will be improvement. But truly feeling like there's not going to be any improvement, it sucks the life right out of you. Or it makes you you gravitate towards something that just gives you temporary pleasure, enjoyment, distraction, can throw you into like some hedonistic sort of mood, like just because I just need to feel like something. Like tomorrow ain't getting better. This job is always gonna suck. I'm not gonna get a better one. I'm stuck in this relationship, or this person left me, and I'm never gonna find another one like it. Or just, what I felt a lot is just a general sense of it. Like I don't think that there's something I can find in this life that will make me satisfied or that will make me want to live it. And like as dire as that sounds, that hopelessness, it stings to the very core of that, because it takes away drive and motivation and inspiration and all the Asians you can think of that you need to get better, or not even get better, but just to get by. I've struggled a lot with deep feelings of hopelessness. A lot of it comes from cynical and pessimistic thinking, negative cognitions, like all that type of stuff. And I know what the hopelessness almost has a different taste to it in my mind, so to speak. I've been depressed and incredibly like downtrodden and disheartened at times of like where I'm at. But if there's a glimmer of something, like, I can find a way out of this. Even like the maybe of it, like maybe there's something I can do. Maybe I'll find this, whatever I'm doing at the moment, a little bit easier. Maybe there is someone who will come along that can help me. Maybe there's something. The hopelessness just takes away that maybe, and I know I talk about the taste of it. Like I can feel it in my gut, because a lot of times it comes apropos of nothing. Like nothing truly like instigates it. It'll just be times, where I'm just sitting in bed at night and I'm like reflecting on the day, or I'm thinking about what I'm doing tomorrow, and I'll just be like, what's the point of this stuff? Like and it doesn't even need that like something external happened in my life to make me feel that way. it has been a long time as far as like drinking was concerned. Like it has been a long time since I've had like a relapse where I did it because of some sort of like delusional thought of, maybe I'll moderate, maybe I'll just drink beer, or I'll only drink on like the weekends, or those sort of lies you kind of tell yourself. Or one I did was like, when I started out kind of with drugs, I was like, well, I'll just do drinking because it's not drugs. That was a very stupid idea. But it's been a long time since I've relapsed because of one of those kind of like distortive thoughts that I've had about my drinking. The times in the more recent years when I've relapsed, it's just because I've been hopeless. I've just kind of given up. I threw up the white flag, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna drink. It's gonna be awful, and there will be consequences. I don't even know how bad they'll be. I know it's gonna take some sort of intervention to get me to stop, but why not? Because the thing that would conjure up in your mind why not is because you have this thing and this, and or even if you don't have these things in your life, doing this will stop you from getting them, and you want to get them, and there's a chance you'll get them, right? And then the hopeless part goes, no, there's not. Or you know what, even if I do get them, I don't believe I'll feel better. I've gone through this life enough to know that, like, dude, just the things that I've wanted, sometimes I've gotten, and when I've gotten them, they haven't made things better. A big linchpin of like true hopelessness is when I run into a sort of significant disappointment. That disappointment, I know, really drives it for me, where I become disappointed and when I thought something I was going to really enjoy, or something that was really going to be helpful, or just anything that got my hopes up. And when it fell through, I revert back to that sort of, that feeling in my gut of like, yeah, this shit ain't getting any better. Like this, I don't even know why I'm doing any of this stuff. Like, what's the point of this effort? And that's the whole thing. It's just like truly asking yourself, what is the point, in this very pessimistic way? Like, what is the point of doing this? Because I don't believe that doing this thing, I don't believe that like exercising and going to therapy and counseling and meditating and doing all, like, what is the point of doing all this stuff if I don't feel like this whole project here is going to get any better? And honestly, these are the things I know other people have felt, and I don't know if you watching that have felt them, and I hope I can at least describe them in a way to where you can relate, or you feel at least some comfort in being able to relate with them. And as far though as like advice, that's honestly difficult for me. It's a lot of general ideas of like, well, you just got to push through and maybe you'll find it. And, I remember hearing that in a particular hopeless state, and I just be like, what? No, push through for what? For why? And obviously a lot of this, you can almost feel the sense of self-pity that kind of swirls in your head when you're in this sort of mood. I can even hear it in what I'm saying now. But the thing is that like self-pity, at least for me, was a way of just like wallowing in my shit because I wanted to. Because maybe if I wallow in my shit, I feel like a piece of shit, I can continue to act like a piece of shit, which is basically either drink or just be lazy during depression, or, all those like negative behaviors. But at times when I'm hopeless, it's not so much just self-pity. It is experiencing real beliefs of true sort of cynical like apathy. And that's the one thing too, is that like the hopelessness drives that apathy. And when you start to lose like hope, you start to not care about things, because in order to care about things, they have to hold some sort of weight for you. They have to have some sort of value or significance. And just hopelessness, it takes all that away. It takes away your reason to get up in the morning, and it takes your reason to try or put yourself out there, or God forbid even become like uncomfortable for a moment, because you don't see there is no carrot at the end of the stick. It's just an empty space that you're staring at, and you're like, I'm going forward because nothing's there. And I know that people, going back to like what advice I'd even give, I know a lot of people out there, they find they find a lot of hope through their faith and getting with other people. Some people find it through community. I've tried those things. I mean, a little bit of the faith stuff, whether it's spirituality or religion. Ugh, I don't know. That's difficult for me, but I know it's super helpful for a lot of other people. But the one thing I've done is like mindfulness practice and meditation. It at least gets me out of it to where I can be able to move on and focus on some sort of things just in my consciousness without having the thoughts of like, this doesn't matter, dude. This is all so pointless. If I can just push that away and then kind of move forward some, then at least another day is another opportunity that maybe I'll be hopeful. And that's really the most that I've been able to do. I mean, in this state I'm at, particularly right now, I'm not very hopeless. I'm not hopeless. There is a little part of me that like sees some value in putting up an effort and recovering and promoting, better well-being. And when I say promoting it, I mean just in my own head, just telling myself this is worth it. There is a point to all this. But when I'm in that state where I don't believe things will get better, I try healthy distraction, and sometimes being around other people can be helpful. There's been certainly times where being around other people and having them be encouraging and in a better mood almost puts me in a worse mood, because I'm like, ugh, I feel so detached from these people because I don't feel this at all. So I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I wish there was a way I could tell you, like, here is where you find, like, here you go through this maze and this is like the hopefulness that you find under the rainbow or something. But if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences with it, like how you've dealt with it. I just know that it is fundamental in any way of any sort of mental wellness whatsoever, whether it is addiction, alcoholism, mental illness, whatever it is. I mean, this comes down to like basics, where a lot of times with mental illness, you need to take, medication. And again, when there's a hopelessness, you're like, why even bother fucking taking this medication? I'm not dealing with these side effects because I don't even think it will improve me. All that type of stuff is what comes with it when you don't have hope. And I strongly encourage, if there's someone out there, there's people I know that are going through hard times, and I know they're sad, and I'm not just gonna like jump upon them in some form of projection too, by the way, but jump upon them and try to help them out, because some people don't want your help, or some people need to deal with it on their own, or you don't really have to be their therapist or counselor. You can be there for them. But like, if somebody is in a hopeless state, really reaching out to them is important. Again, not because like your input or your activity is just going to magically conjure hope for them, but just even just as a form of distraction, just to help them get out of their head, because it's a very, very dark place to be. This was a very kind of darker episode, but that is life when you talk about mental health and certainly addiction and alcoholism. So with that being said, comment again your thoughts about this subject if you would so like. I do have the email if you want any sort of personal correspondence, or want to go into something in detail or privately. It is a confidential email. It is. I'll put it in the thingy below. It's nochaser2022@gmail.com. But other than that, like, subscribe, share, all the weird social media shit, and be well.